Jakari Henderson is hitting the portal, but we think UCF's going to be okay.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every single day. Turn us on, turn us up, we'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend, James Duncan, UCF sports commentator extraordinaire, to talk a little UCF football here for you guys. We're coming rapid fire with these episodes as the portal opening approaches January 2nd. That's Friday. Man, we might do a marathon live or something on Friday to see how UCF does in the portal. On today's show, we're going to talk about a guy who's leaving UCF to get in the portal. That is Jakari Henderson. There's another Henderson who we think might be staying or going. We don't know yet. And then we're going to get into some wider ranging topics here that are important to me. I deal a lot directly with players. I know you do too, James. And we're going to talk about agents in college football and then culture over talent in our last segment. Today's show is brought to you by our title sponsor, guys. That's Game Time, the best place to get tickets. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Also, there's a World Cup coming to the U.S., and if you want to, I don't know about you, but the World Cup is actually on my bucket list. So I might be getting on Game Time to look for some World Cup tickets. My stepdaughter is a really, really, really big soccer fan, and she plays soccer. And so we may be going to see some World Cups via Game Time. Let's start at the top here. Jakari Henderson to the portal. You posted about this on X. But look, man, talk to me about Jakari Henderson. There are guys making decisions that they feel like are in their best interest right now. There's another conversation I want to have, James, about the guys who get lost in the portal that we don't talk about. Guys who enter and then never find a home. Now, I don't think that's going to happen to Jakari, but, what kind of loss is this for UCF?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a decent loss. I wouldn't say that it's one that is going to really hurt you. Jakari was a big recruit out of high school. Him and his brother Damari were these sets of twins local to UCF, balled out in high school, and was someone that you really wanted to see succeed at UCF. Unfortunately, he's been buried behind tons of talent every year. DB talent at UCF for the past couple of years, at least since Jakari has been here, has been plentiful. You put guys in the NFL like Brandon Adams, Mac McWilliams. This past year, you've had Jaden Bellamy, Antoine Jackson, Braden Marshall. You've had tons of success at corner specifically, where Jakari has just not really seen the field all that much. He played mostly his sophomore year, was dealing with an injury his freshman year that kept him out a little while. But his brother Damari has had a majority of the success out of the two twins. The two twins vowed that they wanted to play together out of high school, and so they both came to their local hometown hero school of UCF. And Damari has really had a lot of success where Jakari hasn't seen as much. Damari had the most memorable game in the 2023 space game, I believe it was, against Oklahoma State University, where he had 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery, one Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. And it was just a phenomenal game for him. He had an unreal pick this season, I believe, against Kansas State. It might have been Kansas State. It might have been another game. I think it was Kansas State. And also had, I believe, a pick last year the 2 years ago against Georgia Tech in the bowl game. So the kid has had an unreal career at UCF. He's always been able to make an impact. He's good at covering the field. And so I think that he is going to look to stay at UCF, while maybe his brother Jakari, who has already announced his intentions to enter the portal, goes elsewhere. Whether it's another Power 5 school, I don't know. I could definitely see him going to the G5 level, upper G5, mid G5, and showing his talents there.
At corner was probably one of the stronger positions for UCF, especially defensively. We know the defensive side of the ball played very, very well at times. But from a depth standpoint, how hurt are you about this if you're Alex Grinch? I mean, there's something about getting kids in your program, training them, we talk a lot about creating that pipeline at each position where you have a natural progression of guys stepping up here. Does this cause UCF maybe to look at the portal a little differently there at corner?
Not really. I think you're returning as of now. The players that you really need to return at corner haven't announced their intentions to go in the portal. Those guys being Braden Marshall, who may switch to safety, which would be really, really good for the UCF defense. You've also got a guy like DJ Bell, who has another year transfer from Memphis, who had a pretty solid year last year. Jaden Bellamy hasn't announced his intentions to go in the portal. And I'm not quite sure about Antoine Jackson, what he is thinking to do. But as of right now, I don't believe he has made any sort of intention to enter the portal. Those are your three guys that you really needed to keep in terms of, defined corners. Maybe not. You might need to go in the portal and look for a nickel if Braden Marshall does switch to safety. But right now, you've got all of your major guys. Depth-wise, you might need to go and get some pieces, but they've got some, freshmen that have been waiting in the wings.
Yeah, look, I think this is going to be another massive portal class for Scott Frost, but this one is going to be really important for them. They've got to go and find useful pieces for next year that can come in and contribute immediately. Now, you did one win better than what Gus did in his last year at 5 wins. I think if you're going to convince people that you're moving the needle, you got to find a way to 8 wins somehow. And those 3 wins may seem like light years away, but when you look at the games on the schedule that UCF were unable to pull out, I'm talking about a Cincinnati game that they lost 20-11.
I don't think it was even that much. I think it might have been. It might have been less. I think. No, you're right. 20-11.
Right. You got Houston game you probably should have won. You had a Kansas team that you lost to by a touchdown. I thought that would be a win. You had 3 games easily on the docket that were, 1 to barely 2 score games where the other team didn't go nuts offensively. And if you can find your trigger man at quarterback. Now, we talked about Rocco Becht earlier this week, potentially being a UCF Knight. Could his experience be the difference between, beating Houston or beating Kansas or beating those teams? If the defense can hold serve, that's going to be something that we talk about here. But either way, Jakari Henderson hitting the portal, UCF going to be in the market here to replace his potential. Look, let's get to the break here. And when we come back, I want to talk about agents in college football. There's a money conversation to be had around college football. UCF fully funded to the 20.5. But they've got to spend that 20.5 wisely, and agents are really, really doing something to the game here that, quite frankly, James, I'm not sure that I like. But we'll talk about that next right here on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you again by our friends at Game Time, the best place to buy tickets for your upcoming sports event. Guys, there's nothing like a college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever, but actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives an advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and an experience in just a few steps. Now, it's bowl season, but as I mentioned, the World Cup is coming, concerts, you got all on Game Time. I opened the Game Time app to look at upcoming games and was surprised at how easy it was to find great seats. You get panoramic seat views, and you get something called zone deals, which is an amazing perk where you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Are agents ruining college football? College sports, James, is becoming is let me not say becoming. There are elements of pro sports that have come into college sports with the money. Part of that are the representation that the athletes are bringing in to help them negotiate deals, to help evaluate their value on an open market. The House settlement put something in place to make sure that deals had what they call a real market purpose, meaning you should not be able to just be a booster and have a business that is just exist to funnel money to athletes. They need to be doing appearances and commercials and advertisements or something. They need to be benefiting your business in some way. They also are evaluating whether or not the money that's being paid is equal to the social status that the player has. So what do I mean by that? Well, you got 3,000 followers on Instagram, but you're making $10,000 a month to post on Instagram. That's bull. You've got no following. Nobody follows you. That's clearly not a deal that should be in place for an athlete. I've told athletes all the time, they have such a unique opportunity to grow a following just for existing that if they even do the bare minimum on social media, a lot of them will have 50,000 followers. And I think that the agents, because they get paid based on the athlete, are encouraging guys to test a market sometimes that you shouldn't be in the portal. And yes, I do think agents are somewhat ruining the game, because even going into the NFL, these are young adults, but now you've got 17 and 18-year-olds that have to deal with these vultures. I will call them vultures, encouraging to make decisions that they don't fully understand. And if there's not a family unit in place to help translate it all for you, it's going to leave a lot of kids in a lurch.
Yeah, I think saying all agents are ruining college football is not true. Are there bad players out there? Absolutely. I think a lot of agents are getting a bad rap because, or agents in general are getting a bad rap because of what, a couple agents are doing out there. And it's not what you want to see, because the entire point of an agent is to be able to examine the paperwork of what the school is giving you and say, hey, this is legitimate. This is a fair market offer for what you statistically have done, what you bring to the team, and what you mean to the culture in the area. A lot of agents aren't doing that. A lot of agents are out here taking 5 to 6% of these guys, some even 10% of these guys' NIL payments, which is, by the way, if you don't know, way too much. And they are taking these kids' money and robbing them blind. There are very few agents out there that are going to be as transparent with you as they should be. Any agent that's taking more than, call it 5% from you is not necessarily someone that you should want to keep around, unless that person is a family member that you very much trust, or it is a parent or anything like that. Because here's the thing, these people's families are so much more involved. Like, you might think it's a player to agent to coach deal. No, it is an agent to player, agent to family, agent to mother, father, grandfather, uncle who wants in, sister. It is everybody getting involved, relaying that information to a GM who's relaying it to a head coach, who's relaying it to a director, a player, a personnel. It is all happening all at once. And there's a giant web of information that is required for an agent to not, make a mistake, and for there to be trust, and for there to be transparency. And so when college players are hearing from their agent, oh, well, you've got offers, we're shopping you out. Sometimes these players hop in the portal with no real clue about if they have anywhere to go, Mike. It is disappointing, because there are guys that sign with an agency on the, like assuming that if they sign with someone and that person says, hey, I'm gonna get you this place because I know a coaching staff member here. I'm gonna get you this place because I know the GM, that those guys are automatically going to get offers despite lack of production. It just doesn't happen that way. And it's definitely a tricky game out there. So I wouldn't say that all agents are ruining college football, but
I don't think it's all agents for sure, but the kids that get hurt the most are the tweener kids, right? Like if you are a star athlete, right? Everybody knows what your worth is.
Absolutely.
And so who you choose to represent you is literally about like who you're choosing to donate 5% to, essentially, because if they sign you, they know they're going to get paid, and they can't really like jerk you around on what you're worth, because those offers are going to come in. And, I know a wide receiver that just hit the portal as of the day that we're recording this, and he's worth $2 to $3 million on the open market, not even debatable, right? Yeah. So the school he's leaving definitely understood what was on the table for him. He didn't need an agent to tell him he's worth $3 million. He knows he's worth $3 million. But there are kids in the 2 to 500 range or the 1 to 300 range that are being encouraged to go test their value on an open market, and it's a bad idea because they don't have the tape, they don't have any leverage, and you're going to get out there and you're going to find out that there's not a market for your talent at the price, because the reality, I know, and I have another friend who is the GM of NIL, essentially, for a collective for a major Power 4 school. And he said the hardest conversations that he has with kids is essentially trying to tell them that they're not worth what they think they're worth in their mind. So now you've got agents on the other side fighting against him, saying, oh, he's wrong, you're worth this, I can get you this, I can get you that. And schools are pushing back and saying no. My greatest example of this in the last couple of years is Nico, formerly of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. He was getting 2.5 from Tennessee. They believed in you, man. You were already there. You were the guy. And he went and he tried to leverage them for $4 million. Hit the market, and the market said no. First, Heupel said no. Josh Heupel said, that's a guy UCF fans are very familiar with. He said, and thank God he did. For the sake of the rest of our sanity, Heupel said no to that. Yeah. Then he ends up at UCLA making not 2.5, 1.7, but paying California taxes. So like 900, dude, he lost all the way around. And his dad, unfortunately, was one of the bad agents. In his ear, filling his head with all this stuff, and then he went to a worse situation. He went from a playoff team to a losing football team, not even a bowl game team. Put up worse numbers, making less money. How did his situation turn so badly? I'm telling you, because it was an agent in his ear telling him he was worth more. Now, listen, if you can command 1.7 on the open market, you're still in pretty good position. But there wasn't a better deal on the table for him than what he had at Tennessee. And it kills me that there was nobody in his ear to say, look, man, don't get greedy here. Stay where you're at. Ball out another year and then try to negotiate with them for another year. That's what they should have done. Like, I like Nico. I think he's a talented guy, but he wasn't $4 million a year talented. Who told him that?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that a lot of these guys are getting bad information. And that's why I want to say once again, I do not believe that all agents are ruining college football, but there are some, and there are situations like that you can point to and you can say, this is because of someone in his ear telling, because Nico wasn't like, I know I can get this much somewhere else. No, for Nico, who's 20 something years old, to be offered 2.5 million for him to stay at where he's at. That's a phenomenal offer. And here's the thing. When these agents are saying, hey, you're a star, I know that you're a $200,000 guy, but if you give me 5%, because there are some guys out there that can do this. You could say, hey, I'm going to take 5%, or I'm going to take 3%, or 1.5%, but I'm going to make sure that I get you 20% increase.
There you go.
And those are the guys that you say, all right, if you can trust that guy, that's the guy that you sign with. And if that guy has your best interest in mind, and if he's talking to your family, he's talking to your friends, those are the guys that you trust. But these guys that have some shady deal, you don't want to. No, you don't want to deal with those guys. And that's why it's so important to rock with the right guy. But all that comes down to is culture, right? And that's what we've got next, right, Mike?
Yeah, that's what we got next. Look, culture over talent, talent over culture. This is an ongoing conversation. I'm anxious to see how Scott Frost is going to handle this. You need dogs, but you also need good locker room guys. In a perfect world, those two are one and the same, but that's not always how it works out. We'll talk about that next, right here on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. James, Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and let me tell you something. UCF basketball is on fire, and FanDuel is going to make it even better for you every Friday night before a game. Tip-off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with what they call NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app right before the action starts. Fridays from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour, always bringing something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly specials before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect, right before the games and right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to your Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 p.m. Eastern to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Culture or talent? Talent or culture? Both, right? What kind of program is Scott Frost going to build here? UCF had a lot of good guys. And when I say good guys, I mean like good in here this past season, I felt like. I don't know major trouble issues that we heard of. Like, I can't remember one off the field story from UCF football last year that was negative. If you can think of one, hit me with it. But like, obviously we covered the program. I can't think of one thing that happened off the field where I was like, what is this guy doing? Now they were a 5-win football team. You need dogs, and sometimes those guys are knuckleheads, but you also need enough culture guys that when you take a knucklehead, the culture will right the ship. And his family will put their arms around him and say, brother, what are you doing? We see it sometimes on the field with unsportsmanlike conducts when a guy gets jarred in and the team leader comes over and says, no, stop. Instead of saying, yeah, let's fight, right? Culture or talent or culture. You've got to find a good mix of it as the portal opens here in a few days. Scott Frost has got to look at the talent that's in the portal, but he's also got to make decisions about what's going to be best for his locker room. And sometimes I'm telling you, having a 3-star that is willing to work his ass off is better than having a 4 or 5-star that is kind of resting only on his talent and expecting to out-talent everybody. I've seen this in my time going all the way back to college. I filmed every game in practice for a Power 4 team that went undefeated. And I'm telling you, while they had 4 first-round draft picks on that team, James, the unspoken heroes were the guys who were not highly heralded out of high school that came in and had a chip on their shoulder and had something to prove, and they would not be outworked. They just wouldn't be outworked. And I think that that's the culture part that I hope that Scott Frost and these guys can build down in Orlando.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to look at culture versus talent, you can take 2021 through 2024, and you can look at talent. And then if you take 2025, you look at culture. There was tons of talent under Gus Malzahn. Tons. He had consistently the best recruiting class over and over and over and over again at
Boy, I know that
UCF
story.
every single year.
Yeah.
Brought in some of the best guys that he could. And UCF consistently said, this is our best recruiting class. And then 22 said best recruiting class. 23 said best recruiting class. 24, best recruiting class. What did those guys do? Well, that first year, those guys that were recruited in previous years and, UCF went to the American Athletic Conference championship game, or the first year they went to a bowl game, they won, they beat Florida. Second year, they go to an AAC championship game, they lose. Before that, they had lost to Navy to secure the win, to secure the championship at home. Almost lost to USF after blowing a, multi-score lead. That's not really culture. That's talent. You have talent on that team. And then you go 6-6 your first year in the Big 12. You lose the bowl game after blowing once again a multi-score lead. Then Gus's final year, you go 4-8 with one of the best running backs in the country. That's talent. That's having talent. But what do you have last year? Well, you didn't have any flashy players from the portal.
Yeah.
You didn't have any flashy high school recruits that were coming out and balling. No, you had Myles Montgomery, who was a 3-star transfer from Cincinnati, who came here as a super quiet guy, and then he opened up as a guy, said UCF made him a better man, and he became a better man and a better leader because of that, and became a leader of this team. You had Paul Rubel, who, despite having, and we'll just say what it was, a not great year, was still a vocal leader of this team and an ambassador for UCF. Jaden Nixon as well, a vocal leader of this team. Cole Kozlowski from Colgate, a linebacker from Colgate University, came here, balled out, became a leader. These are the people that you need at UCF, but you need those guys to be surrounded by talent and also have talent infused within them. And that's when you get that perfect mix. And that's what, and every single person from UCF is going to go, well, that's what 2017 was. That's what 2018 was. Of course it was. You can't succeed without culture and talent. And that's what the next 2 years needs to prove. We know that you've got the culture, Scott Frost. We know that you're bringing Knight Nation together. We know that you're bringing the fans in, and we know that you're bringing players that care in, and we know that you're making them better men. But we need to see good football too.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, and that's what needs to happen within the next 2 years, or fans are going to get tired, man.
Yeah, look, man, culture is great. Wins are better. And in a perfect world, you're doing both at a very, very high level. As I mentioned, look, there are going to be some young men that are going to come into your program that are going to need a little bit more guidance than others. And I don't ever want to be a part of a program or covering a program that ignores those young men who may be very talented but a little troubled, because some of them, when they get to college, it's their first time they're really going to have a man in their life that cares about them, give them direction and instruction. James, I can't speak for everybody. My father's been a part of my life my entire life. He is 100% my hero. And the lessons that he taught me as a young man followed me into adulthood, and it shaped my interactions with people, my career. I learned how to respect authority. I knew when to speak up against authority. Those were lessons that I learned as a man. Some of these kids aren't getting that until they get to college and they get their first college coach, somebody who actually gives a damn about them. And I think culture is important, talent is important, but I hope that what Scott Frost is building is a program that embraces not only the good young men, but the talented men who have just never had true guidance and direction and will be receiving that for the first time in their life, because sports is an escape for some of these kids from their situation, a situation that you will never be able to get out. I mean, I don't want to get on my soapbox about this, but so many kids in our country are just a victim of their environment. They were born into an environment where that's very hard to overcome what's around you. It's why you see a lot of pro players, they go pro and they get a lot of money and they get in trouble. And people are like, why would they be mixed up in all of that with all that money? And it's not that simple. It is very, very hard to break away from the environment that you grew up in. And just having money doesn't mean that you automatically just clear all that. Those same people that were there with you, whether they're good or bad influences, are still around. And, you talk about agents ruining college football with their hands out trying to make money off kids. Nobody talks about the family members and the friends and that are having, and these kids are young and they want to please people and they want to help the people who they knew when they were young. But, part of this journey, this culture journey, is learning how to walk away from some of those people, learning how to say no. I saw a ridiculous podcast with Odell Beckham saying that $100 million isn't a lot of money. And I was like, bro, if you don't be quiet, like $100 million is plenty of money. You have a problem saying no to people. That's it. You either got an extreme spending problem or you're giving your money away to everybody who's got their hand out in your life.
And you talk about this being an issue in NFL and now it's becoming such a large issue in college football. And I can say this, personally, having worked on the NIL side, there are plenty of guys that are hearing from their family about, oh, well, I have to take care of my mom. And of course that you want to take care of your mother. That's a given. Oh, well, my sister, my stepsister, my great aunt, my grandmother, my grandfather are all these people now that are asking for money or saying, hey, I need this from you. And so these players that are out there making $50,000, $60,000 and they're hearing from an agent, hey man, we can go get you $200,000 to $300,000 somewhere. Well, now you're trying to make sure that you have enough to give back not only to yourself, but your family.
Right.
And then you hop in the portal and look, there's nobody there. And I real quickly want to just mention this story because I know it got a lot of traction on Twitter. But there was a corner from the University of Florida. He was a preferred walk-on, had been there for 2 years. He had people telling him, hey, man, you go in the portal and you will find a spot. His name is Amon Covington. He had tons of practice tape from Florida. He never got on the field, but he got tons of practice tape. He wasn't on scholarship, like I said, preferred walk-on, but had a lot of really good tape. Had people saying, hey, man, your tape is great. You get in the portal, somebody will pick you up. Never got picked up. Hasn't played college football in over a year. That's what worries me a little bit about the portal, especially with some of these guys that maybe didn't see a lot of playing time here at UCF, or maybe was, freshman, got injured, only has tape from high school, and they've got guys saying, hey man, we'll take you, people will take you $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. And then they get in the portal and they end up going to some random G5 or FCS. I mean, hell, we had a quarterback last year that went to a community college. Those things happen. And there are as many success stories you hear about guys getting in the portal, there are just as many horror stories about those guys getting in the portal.
Yeah.
So all this to come back to, people are going to get in the portal whether or not you like it or not. Agents are going to try and convince guys to get in the portal, and whether that's good or bad, it's up for you to decide. And all the retaining issues come down to retaining culture.
Yeah,
and having culture in your program.
I think my prayer for UCF football is that under Scott Frost, he can both create that culture and then make it a winning one as well, too. One that not just wins football games, but that changes young men's lives. Something I'm very passionate about. Again, a coach, maybe the closest thing to a father figure that some of these kids ever see. And there are a lot of players who are blessed to have that in their life. Strong fathers, strong male role models. I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I think this is a part of this that it just goes underrated, man, to just have a man who cares about you, tell you that he loves you, and gives you the hard part. One that you can accept that criticism from and get back on your grind and do better. So We need that. We need that in Orlando, and I hope that that's part of the culture, part of this, right? It's more than just about being a good locker room guy. It's about really putting good young men out into the world that we are proud to say they are UCF Knights, even if they go in pro in something other than sports. So great conversation here. James Duncan, UCF sports commentator, talking a little UCF football here with me today, guys. Hit the comments after the video. Let us know what you think. Are agents ruining college football? Culture over talent. How do you guys feel about the culture versus talent conversation? And weigh in on Jakari Henderson to the portal. Could the other Henderson stay? We'll definitely be covering that, guys. We're going to go on and get out of here. We appreciate you for making us your first listen of every single day here at Locked On UCF. We got even more content to come this week, so lock in with us, and we'll be back with you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On UCF.